What is up, everybody? Josh Tapp here again, and welcome back to the Lucky Titan. And today we're here with Jason Howe, and this guy is the founder of Agency J. And the reason I wanted to bring him on today is this guy has been working with a lot of coaches and course creators, right? Where most of you who listen to this show, you have at least one of those services within your product stack. And so we really want to talk about that today, and how he's actually been leveraging his agency to help a lot of these these coaches and course creators to scale their companies. So Jason, say what's up to everybody, and then let's hop in.
Hey guys, hi everyone. I'm not sure whether you guys can see me or just hear me, but I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me here, Josh.
They will see you as well, so that's good. So Jason, I want to ask you this just to kind of kick it off. What was that pivotal point in your business where you realized I need to run an agency, right? It's kind of that business decision point that all of us have where we realize there's a need in the market. What was that point for you?
Well, to be very honest, because I started my journey very early on as a freshman in university, what I really did was just freelance work, just trying to figure out what it is that I wanted in my life. But I would say very much after I left the university and finished with my first job, that was, I guess, the turning point at a point in time. I would have done it a lot earlier if I had a choice, but because I was on a full ride scholarship with the college and I was going to, and I also, as part of the full ride scholarship, needed to serve one of the government agencies for 2 years. I didn't have another choice to kind of just break the bond and decide to hop into this full time. I would reckon that I was actually a few years late because, first of all, during my journey, I was actually offered a role to join. I'm not sure whether you guys are familiar with AppSumo. I was actually given a role or offered a role by Noah Kagan to join them to do paid traffic for them. That was back in 2015. And then in 2016, I actually partnered up with a guru to run ads for the likes of Golden State Warriors, The Economist, a lot of its big brands. And then after that, I kind of just did things on my own after I left the agency. So I did realize it very early on, I guess, in terms of turning point, but I wasn't really able to act until I finished with my kind of like the stint at the government agency back in 2018. So that's where I really got started with the agency.
See, and I love that because there's a lot of people who do digital marketing, right? And I'm kind of guilty of this as well. I was in college when I started my first agency, and I remember just feeling like, what, I have to pretend like I know what I'm talking about. And at the time, I had never run an ad in my life, and a lot of agencies are built that way, in their mom and dad's basement. Where
exactly.
With you have that corporate experience. It's really intriguing to me to watch. Actually, a couple different people who've done this, where they take their corporate experience running multi-million-dollar ad budgets, and then they bring it down to people like us who might have smaller ad budgets, but you're able to convert a lot better, right, than most people, because you understand how it works at scale. So walking me through kind of your methodology. So I'm just going to give you an example as a coach, right? I have done a lot of coaching in the past. I have a group coaching program. It's a $10,000 price point. Where would you start with somebody like that? I've already made some good sales. I've got a decent funnel, but how would you recommend moving forward?
Yeah, so we nowadays, the advice I give to anyone that I speak to is, if you don't have a working funnel with paid ads that you're spending at least like $100 to $200 a day that you are converting profitably, you're not ready to hire an agency. I keep telling coaches, it doesn't matter which agency you hire. Like, there's 9 out of 10 chance you're going to feel burnt. And it's not exactly going to be the agency's fault. It is purely a matter of timing. So I think you need to understand the economics, or anyone who looking to hire an agency or want to work with an agency needs to understand the economics behind hiring an agency. You're hiring them, you're definitely going to pay a retainer, which is kind of like an ongoing cost that you're going to incur. And you're basically getting back time to work on other things. So I would always tell people, whether they're making 20K, I tell them, if you do not have, you're not converting your clients from leads, they're coming from paid traffic, then run their paid traffic yourself first. Get it up to a point where you're generating $30,000, $40,000 worth of sales from paid traffic, across a number of months. You get some sort of consistency there, so it's not a one-hit wonder. And that's when I think you're ready to really explore working with an agency. And I find that when I work with clients like that, my success rate with them is close to 100%. But when I start accepting clients, they're at 10K, 5K mark, they're like, I've made a ton of organic sales even. our success rates, can be as low as 25 to 30%. So these days we have a very strict policy. If we come across somebody and they're not ready for ads, they're not ready for ads. We're not going to rush them. We're simply going to give them advice and tell them, hey, you've got a great offer, you've validated, you have good organic traffic. In fact, we've got clients who came to us when they have more than $1 million a year in organic sales. And they come to us and say, hey, I'm ready to budge on paid ads. But even for them, because they have never run paid traffic or never made paid traffic work for their business, it still takes a bit of time for them to do the testing and for them to get things working. There are so many iterations that you need to do to your webinar in order to change and tweak the message such that it will work with a completely cold traffic. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a really cool methodology, right? Because that gives you a benchmark. If you're not at that point where you're spending $100 a day, you're really not ready to hire an agency. And I love that you bring that to play, because I know for us, we early on, we tried to hire agencies and we weren't even spending $1 in ads, right? And we'd spend all this money getting them, paying them to come work for us and make our ads. And then they're like, well, where are your ads? Well, that's what you're here for, right? And I don't believe you really need an agency until you've, like you said, proven the offer. Because once the offer is proven and the sales happen, the ad agency is going to blow it up, right? They're not going to be there
Exactly.
to make your offer better for you, especially if it's just an ad agency.
Exactly.
So with you, with your own company and generating leads for yourself, and I want to ask you this question because it's always an interesting response when you ask an ad agency, how do you get business? What's kind of your number one lead source for your company, Jason?
Yeah. So while number one lead source are actually recommendations from our existing clients. And secondly, because when I first started my journey freelancing and everything, I've built kind of like a personal brand online. I've, written a lot of blog posts very early on. I was associated with Social Media Examiner, Agora Pulse, Espresso, and all the early kind of influencer kind of platforms for social media marketing. And as a result, people kind of know me. They know me, what I do, and how I'm positioned. And therefore, like, even if they didn't think of working with me at a point in time, I have people writing to me 2-3 years later asking me, hey, you're the guy that I've read up your blog post. I absolutely love it. And I've always thought of wanting to work with you one day. And now my business is ready. So I would say that my biggest sources of sales for the agency definitely comes from our existing clients, as well as our organic kind of like presence on Facebook. Yeah.
Love that. And it's funny to watch because depending on the business that you have, right, and the industry you're in, different types of marketing work better. Obviously referral sales, that's the best. And for agencies like ours, where we are a high ticket agency, same as you,
Yeah.
you almost don't need ads as much to scale because
Yeah.
you're getting almost too many leads to be able to actually convert, I'm saying, like, you can't really onboard that many people in any given month. So
Yeah.
it's really intriguing to me to just see the other ways that you're doing it. So let's talk through, Jason, how, like, who, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in your company, and I'm just going to ask you this kind of a twofold question, right? For your company and for, a coaching business or something that's doing $500,000 in revenue, who is the who? Who do you hire? What's the first thing you outsource? Is it your fulfillment? Is it your marketing? Is it your sales? What do you recommend?
Yeah, so I would say, just based on my own experience, very early on, the first person I hired was actually a client success manager, someone who would take the load off my mind of having to respond quickly to clients, to handle things like any instructions or briefs from the clients, to follow up with clients on things that we need. For example, questionnaires getting filled out, or customer interviews that we need to do, or getting our ads approved and reviewed. Those things, basically, I got a client success manager to do it for us. So that's the first person. And then we actually experimented with many different people after that, many different roles, because we kind of restructured our agency several times. I was building my agency based on what I think will work best. And we kind of took several iterations before we found a structure that really worked and scaled. And that was after talking with many other agency owners as well. And we found that not every agency structure works for us because we are different as well. Just everyone is different. So I would say the next biggest kind of like shift that we experienced as an agency was when I hired a skilled copywriter. When I brought on, an Australian copywriter as well as a Canadian copywriter. We got two copywriters at the moment in the team, and they were so good. Like, they literally came on, and not only did I not have to worry anymore about copy, but they actually took it to the next level. They actually wrote copy that was just like, oh wow. I looked at it, I was like, okay, we can send it to a client already. Whereas in the past when I, kind of hired people who were mixed with media buying and copy, the copy was like so-so and the media buying is like so-so. And that created a lot of trouble. So yeah, I think like, if there's any agency owner listening today, I would say 100% hire someone good, just pay the money and you get many folds in return. As for the copywriter, however, I personally am trained somewhat in copy, so I can distinguish between good and bad copy. So I actually went through, like, I would say easily 100 applications and only shortlisted 3 copywriters. And this is coming from 100 like so-called qualified copywriters. Because not every copywriter writes good copy. Most of them are great at positioning themselves because they bought some course and they're charging really highly. And I know a lot of copywriters will probably hate me for saying this, but I would say a lot of them are more fluff than material. And I was just really lucky, to be honest, to come across these 2 copywriters. They're just awesome people. They just love writing. They're not out there trying to make a quick buck, and it shows in their work, it shows in their attitude, it shows in their work ethic. So copywriter is the second hire, and the third hire is actually a media manager, someone to replace me because I was media buying trained. So really letting go of managing client campaigns, just allowed us to grow that much faster. I was just sharing my team that compared to 2 years ago, we have grown 3 times, and compared to last year since COVID, we have actually grown about 100%. So the growth has been huge for us, and without passing it on to someone, without training them, without putting everything that I know into frameworks, processes, and steps, sure enough, you can never capture 100% of what you do, but you can at least capture the 80% and just coach the remaining 20% based on case-by-case scenarios as they come along. And that has really created a huge shift for us as an agency. And we have been our most profitable this year. So I'm really grateful for that. Well, as for coaching businesses, now on the second part of the question, I honestly am not the best person to ask in terms of hiring because we have not built a coaching business ourselves from scratch. However, just based off what I've known from our own clients, definitely getting an admin person to come in and help out with the day-to-day stuff, and also helping out with some of your appointment scheduling, follow-up. So appointment setting would be really helpful as well. And I would say a third role is really hiring coaches to help you fulfill. So those 3 things, I would say, are kind of like the reflection of the equivalent of a copywriter, a media manager, and a client success manager in an agency. So I feel like that there is almost some things that they could apply and learn in a coaching company as well. But I just think that just based off what my clients have done, those 3 roles are the roles that I think have been most impactful in helping the business grow, for sure.
That's awesome. Well, and I love that you mentioned that because it's different depending on industry, but what most people don't realize when they look at a company, especially in the digital age with being a digital entrepreneur, there's only 3 things you have to fill. There's 3 roles. You have marketing, sales, and fulfillment. And so, what of those is your biggest roadblock right now? And most people will say, oh, it's my sales. When in all reality, it's probably not your sales. It's probably you don't have good quality leads or enough leads. That's been my experience, at least.
Yeah.
And you're probably not sucking at sales. It's usually just, you're in the room with the wrong person.
And, I totally agree.
It's just so funny to watch that, that I guess that miscommunication that people have, or that misconception where they think, oh, it's always sales, but it usually isn't that. That's usually not the problem.
Exactly. I think, like, if I could just share a quick story here, we suffer from the very same situation, I would say, up to the end of last year. What happened was I worked with Joe Away's team. So Joe Away is one of the webinar gurus, and he teaches people like the what they call I think it's the power offer. So funny, right? As an agency, we had to hire them, to create our webinar funnel. But I thought they were the best in business, so I worked with them. And their copywriter, Brian Mead, is basically the person that helped us to craft and reposition our offer. Like we already do all the right things because our fulfillment is really awesome. Like our systems in place and everything is great, but we just didn't know how to sell it. Really funny, for a marketer ourselves, we don't really know how to sell one thing, but it's so
Very
common.
typical though.
Exactly. So after the consulting session with this copywriter, like ever since that day, my closing rate on sales has been like 100%. And there's not 100% only when we reject clients, we turn clients down. In fact, right now I have 4 clients that we held off just because we have max capacity, and we told them like, if you really want to work with us, we got to wait until November because we're going to bring on someone in October, and then we need around a month of trading. So they all said yes. So anyway, coming back to that, I would say, yeah, the copywriter was just great. He looked at our offer, he was like, no, this is not what you guys should do. This is what you guys should say. I was just like, yeah, now they make sense, like that when he told us like, he's worked with so many agencies and this is the first time he's heard of like A, B, and C. I was like, oh, are you serious? So like just focusing our messaging of the agency around those 3 points. Wow, like the quality of the people that have come to us to want to work with us has been amazing. And even when I do outbound, for example, I'm part of a couple of memberships where they also offer their members leads, if you pass their certification and test, and I've done them a long time ago. So I reach out, and often, these leads are kind of get like people who are going to get 10, 20 different emails. And I have no issues getting them to respond, and I have no issues getting them on a call, and no issues closing them, purely because of the messaging and the things that took away from that, that call with the copywriter from Joe Away's agency. So I'm very grateful, even though it cost a shit ton of money. It was money well spent for sure. Yeah.
So that seems to be typically what happens. So I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and I always watched
Nice.
Other entrepreneurs, even in my own family, fail because they're trying to say, how can I do this without spending money? And it's just not the case. I don't believe in building a business for free from scratch, because I know I tried to do it for 3 years and never made any significant amount of money until I started saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to go into debt and I'm going to make some strategic decisions that cost a lot of money. And that's when our business started to take off, because I think it's just a principle of sacrifice.
Yeah, I think like that is one thing, but also just being okay with failing and wasting money. So I hired 3 different coaches. Our first coach was like a complete disaster. It's one of the biggest group coaching program out there. And I know if I say the name, everyone will know it, but they were a complete disaster. It was terrible. We paid like $10,000 for almost like nothing in return. We hired a second coach, and it was like $5,000, same thing. We agreed on deliverables, and when I became a client, he changed the deliverables, right? Basically got me to try and change my industry to work on like an industry I had no interest in. Like granted, I could have done better due diligence. There's definitely things that I could have done better. I'm not like shirking responsibility. But what I'm saying is, despite all the failures, I still continued investing, and eventually we found really good people. The third one I invested in was Todd Brown, and Todd Brown really worked out really well. He introduced me to the whole idea of messaging and really honing our agency's messaging. And we took that same framework he teaches us to do the messaging for all of our clients. It's been really useful. And then, of course, the fourth one was not a coaching program. It was basically working with Joe Away. So I will say we have invested over like $40,000 working with coaches and, just hiring agencies outside. And I refer only to the high ticket ones. We have invested in a lot of, mid ticket or lower ticket courses, $2,000, $1,000. I'm just not counting those. But yeah, I would say once you get used to it, like, and be okay, even if you fail to find like someone from your first $5,000 investment, continue, keep pushing on. As long as you're earning an income, you can earn back the money again, you can reinvest again, and you will multiply eventually. And I'm pretty sure like, that's like probably what a lot of people experience as well. You're not going to find the right coach from the get-go.
Yeah, I completely agree. And coaching such an interesting thing, because I 100% believe in getting a coach. I think the problem that most people have though is they think that that's going to be their salvation, their road out. But when you
Yeah.
hire a coach, they're going to immediately tell you to start spending more money. That's just how it is. And not sometimes it's with them, sometimes it's hiring an agency or buying a product. There's always something they're going to be telling you to do. So you have to be prepared
Yeah.
with that and come with the
Yeah.
capital preparations is my personal belief. Have enough
Yeah.
lines of credit or something that you can pull from, or maybe your own 401k or whatever that you can pull from.
Yeah.
But I think people fall into that same trap, like you said. They'll spend $10,000 on this coaching program thinking it's going to be the greatest thing that ever happened to them. And I mean, I'm guilty of spending $25,000 on multiple different types of coaching and being like, I probably could have got away with their course, not needing the actual
Yeah.
coaching, and I think a lot of people fall in that trap where it's like, oh, I need to spend money on coaching, where in all reality, you can get a fantastic coach without even paying for it. If you just find somebody who's more successful than you in the industry who doesn't have a coaching program, they're usually willing to coach you and be kind of on your side, right? To be your friend on it and hold you accountable to it. So Jason, we've been going for here for about 20 minutes at this point, but I just want to ask you, kind of about your motivation and where you're finding like what your next goals are for your company. And so for you guys, where you're currently at, what's kind of the next big target? Where are you guys running for right now?
Yeah, I kind of figured out the entire agency game and found that it's not really that fun, because ultimately to grow an agency, you hire people, you take on a couple more clients, you hire another person. So it's kind of like just adding headcount, going back to take on more clients. The game is honestly getting boring. But our purpose has always been to work with great coaches and course creators and just putting their programs, which we know changes lives, into the hands of as many people as possible. I would say I'm incredibly blessed that we have over a dozen clients who are just fantastic. They're just amazing human beings with great programs, with just fantastic results. Not like any of the coaches I've hired previously. But I would say our goal right now actually is we are looking to start our own e-commerce brand. We are in the midst of exploring the logistics side of things and working on the packaging and the offer as well. We have actually gotten the sales copy written. We're just looking to create a packaging to, put everything prim and proper on a Shopify store and kind of start selling it, just to gauge demand before we, start producing the product. So this is where we're headed. And as a team, I think we're all getting excited about like taking our years and years of training into kind of putting it into something that we own as a team. And I know everyone is like, really hyped up about it. The agency at the end of the day, I would say, is going to exist as a training ground for new people who want to pick up digital marketing skills. Of course, only those who can catch up to the speed, because the pace of an agency life is very fast and it's definitely not for everyone. Then separately, there's also a place for our more experienced folks who want to give back. We have several people on the team as well who are at a stage in their life where they're like, they've seen it all, done it all, and they're like, they just want to teach the younger folks. They want to share with them what they've learned. They just want to lead the way. And it's a great opportunity for them to do that as well, because they're doing a lot of internal consulting. And then I guess if any one of them wants to advance their career, hopefully if the e-commerce brand works out, they can join us over in the e-commerce company. And I think that's where we'll see a lot more growth and scale with the business as well.
Remind me after this call, I want to connect you with Steven Sommers. He's like the king of e-commerce, and
Oh,
I
that's
know he has
awesome.
like a coaching program, but as we were just talking with coaching,
Yeah.
I would that'd be somebody I would work with if I were you. Not even for coaching, but they have a really good business for getting e-com out there quick. Awesome, Jason. Well, I appreciate you coming on. So let me ask you a couple final questions here. So the first question is, where can people find you and Agency J?
Yeah, the easiest way to look for us is at agencyj.co, is .co at the end. We do have an intake form. You can fill in the details. Currently, honestly, we don't have any calendar openings until like late September, because we're not taking any clients until like, I would say earliest is really November. Just based on projections right now, we are currently already looking for a media buyer. And this time around, compared to what we did in the past, we are looking only for people with at least 2 years of experience, so they can hit the ground running. But of course, we still need to do some internal training and testing and things like that. But yeah, so agencyj.co is the best place to look for us.
Love that. Well, then just to ask you one final question, Jason, if you could give us one final parting piece of guidance, what would that be?
Yeah, in fact, I think I've shared this with several folks recently. I think the biggest lesson I've learned is to solve problems in the right sequence. I think what you focus on expense, which is what a lot of people would say, but how do you choose what you focus on? And it's really just as key. It's really important as an entrepreneur that you are focusing and on solving the right problem at a point in time. If let's say you have a fulfillment issue and you try to solve problem with sales or with lead generation, it's going to set you back so much more. So really ask yourself what is the most pressing and most important problem to solve right now, and kind of like sequence out the entire list of problems that you have and tackle them one at a time. And we have found the most growth right after we tackle really problems in sequence, and that's basically what we've experienced so far with our agency.